Rounding is something that kids learn to do in elementary school, but I see them struggle with it through high school often because they don't remember the rounding rule and they never really understood what the rounding rule does in the first place. Here's what the rounding rule looks like. You're asked to round 6,781 to the nearest hundred. You underline the digit in the hundreds place and you look to its neighbor, the next digit. If it's a 5 or above, you round the 7 up. If it's below 5, you leave the 7 as is, and the rest of the numbers become zeros. So 6,781 rounds to 6,800. This method has no meaning for kids because it doesn't tap into real life understanding. As a proof of point, I've seen students do this. Okay, I have to round this number. I see that the next digit over is an 8, so that means that the 7 becomes an 8, and so it rounds to 6,881. This doesn't make any sense. This number's not even rounded. But if you're just using a method without thinking about it, you might not even notice that. You might just leave off this last step of turning the rest of the digits into zeros and not realize your mistake. You don't need a rule for everything. You need concept understanding. Your children are already using the idea of rounding in everyday life. Like when you tell them you'll pick them up from school at 3 o'clock. They know that you might be there at 2:57 or 3:04, but if you don't come until 3:28, they're gonna be pretty annoyed you didn't tell them you're coming at 3:30. That's because they already understand the concept of rounding. So why is it that when they sit down to do their homework or take a test, they don't remember how to do it? It's because of this disconnect between school math and real world math. Parents are in a unique position to bridge that gap, to help kids connect their schoolwork with their real life experiences. You can help your kid understand rounding at any age by talking to them about it. What is rounding and why do we use it? Try this. Ask your kid how old they are. For younger kids, they'll usually say, I'm 4 3/4, I'm 6 1/2. Older kids will probably round to the nearest whole number. Play devil's advocate and ask them why they didn't choose the other way around. See what they're thinking and just have a conversation. How old are you?
5.5.
So are you also 5?
Yeah.
Why are you 5 and you're 5.5?
Well, when you're 5.5 or 5 1/4 and 5 3/4, it means like you're still 5, but you're like almost 6.
Talk about the different reasons why we round. For instance, your child's bus might come at 7:32 a.m. and you know they need about an hour to get ready for school, but you'll probably set the alarm for 6:30 rather than 6:32 because 6:30 is a nice round number, and round numbers are easier to remember, they're easier to plan around and to work with. Rounding isn't just a skill to have for its own sake. As your kids get older, they'll use it to help them work through harder problems. So if they get a problem with complicated numbers and they're using a formula to solve it, they could round those numbers to simpler ones and do some mental math to estimate what kind of answer they might expect to get, to estimate as they go and make sure they're on the right track, and to check their work at the end and make sure that the answer they get with the rounded numbers is really similar to the answer they get with the exact numbers. Once your child really understands rounding, here's a better method for solving a textbook problem. Since we're rounding to the nearest 100, think of the multiples of 100. 100, 200, 300, 400, etc. Sandwich your number between the two closest ones, 6,700 and 6,800. Picture a number line and decide which number your exact number is closer to. It's closer to 6,800. So that's what we round it to if we're rounding to the nearest 100. Remember that your understanding of math concepts like rounding is relevant, and the conversations that you have with your children around those concepts are valuable.